This summer is going to be the most hyperactive transfer window I think we have ever seen. We're not even at July 1st yet, and all you need to do is look at the Wild West of the Premier League for a sign of what is to come. All the very interesting and very delicate transfers that a few of those clubs are starting to strike up right before the deadline of July 1st, where they come into a new accounting period, is just going to be the tip of the iceberg. Because once we get into the proper summer transfer window, the Euro group stages are done, and we're in that new kind of financial setting coming into the 24-25 season. Not just all the Premier League clubs, but you see how active Bayern Munich, Juventus, there's a lot of big institutional European giants, I was going to say Premier League clubs there, that are going to be putting, I wasn't going to say a lot of money because these clubs don't really have much more money than before, but because of the kind of levelling of the landscape that we've seen with all this PSR stuff, particularly this summer, their money goes a little bit further, and some of the players that they're looking to maybe trade in or out could be very, very valuable assets to, lubricating a lot of these transfers. So I think once we get to the beginning of the European season, so many clubs and leagues are going to look so much more different than they did coming into this summer transfer window. Even like the tier 2 clubs, or the the kind of second in the food chain, like the Leverkusens and the Bolognas, the Sociedads, the Atalantas. There's lots of other clubs around that kind of level that are now a real force in the transfer market, not just for selling players for big transfer fees, but to actually bring a player in on a good transfer fee that will either replace somebody very important or maybe even help them try and kick on a little bit, And now that we're like a month down the road of this summer transfer window, I'm having a wee look back at my own activity for my Sorare club, and I've been pretty hyperactive as well. Sorare announced what the new competition format is going to be for the 24-25 season, so that, it's a much easier kind of pick up and play game for most people, and they can have a much more kind of concentrated effort of where all the money is going to be played for in one, as well as then where they're going to have other stuff like cards and experiences and shirts and all that kind of thing. So because there's a kind of readjustment across the landscape, I'm already thinking about just getting my ducks in a row in that sense. But then when you have a look at what's actually happening all across Europe, it's really hard to sit and look at a lot of players and clubs right now and really have a good feeling for what their situation is. So I'm doing my best to kind of negotiate through the transfer window, ride with the waves, take the highs with the lows and everything else to prepare my club. But also I want to make sure that I'm maximizing some transfers that are happening in this window, because some players are going to go from zero to hero, or really, kick on their career over this summer. And, for some of the ones that I like to track and follow, I think it's going to be a really big summer. In the video today, I'm going to be taking you through all my moves, what I've been up to, what I think is really important. If you're building a team, you're looking to just get your ducks in a row, whatever it is with Sorare ahead of the 24-25 season, where it is going to be the biggest season ever on the game. If you're brand new to Sorare and you haven't even opened up your account yet, but there's a link in the description in this video that will get you £50, dollars, euros, whatever your currency is, of auction credit to spend as you see fit on the secondary market, to a max value of 50% per transaction once you've bought 5 cards from the market. I've got a great hack where you can spend as little as possible and end up with a fantastic Premier League team as a result. I'll link that in the description of this video, as well as my new Sorare Start Here playlist, in case you need any explanations or any beginner tutorial type of videos or whatever. And get into the comment section in this one and let me know what your big summer transfers have been. What's the move you're waiting for to happen, or what's the move that has happened that you just seen red for and you're like, that is the one for me, that's my new goalkeeper, that's my new striker. Get them in the comment section. I always love to hear the transfers that are swirling around that people are taking advantage of to make their club better ahead of the new season. And let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, I've always been pretty good with understanding what cards I'm buying and using on Sorare for fun, and what ones I'm using to try and win and earn money from playing the game. Whether that be trading them in and out of the market, buy low, sell high, that kind of thing, or whether it be trying to get on the leaderboards and win prize money that way. And one of the major developments that came out of the the restructuring of the prize pool of the SO5 arena for this year was the fact that they were making it very obvious and very clear that, hey, all the money is now just in one place. It's not scattered around a bunch of different divisions and different places. It's like, if you want to play for money, you need current in-season cards, which as we speak now, there is currently none of for the 24-25 season, of course. And then you've got the classic mode, which is where you'll win cards, experiences, shirts, all that kind of stuff. And that's with, legacy cards that could be 5 years old on the platform. They could be last season's issue. It really doesn't matter. Which I think just cleans everything up quite nicely. But a big part of my club and a big part of my strategy for trying to have, cards that I can sell into the market for a good amount of money that can maybe help me strengthen my team elsewhere, or so that I can withdraw the money as clean profit, whatever it might be, is the Champion Euro region. Now, Champion Euro is the top 5 leagues in European football: France, Italy, Spain, Germany, and England. And that has just been further underlined with all the changes that we had announced back in May or April or whenever it was. But the main kind of change, tactically speaking, strategically speaking, from a Sorare perspective, no matter what your budget is, no matter what team you're playing with, is every competition now is multi-entry. So you can play 3 teams, which is fantastic for players like me that love to buy lots of different players that maybe aren't, the meta card. It's not the most expensive card you can go and buy, but it's maybe like a mid-budget, low-budget card. But it's a guy that has a couple of days in the sun, or maybe he's an up-and-coming talent that I think will improve. And when you buy those types of cards, having multi-entry is probably the perfect way of scratching that itch of, I really want to make sure this guy's in a team this week, even though the fixture doesn't look great, even though he's not been in great form. But, you back the guy and you've got a good hunch for him. So having like a team 3 that could be full of like the questionable guys, but you still kind of back and fancy, is right up my alleyway. But the number one problem it gives me straight away is that I need 3 goalkeepers now, not 1, like I did before, that play in that competition and will complement the cards that I've already got. Now, the easy solution to this, of course, would be just to buy copies of the same guy. You can do that if you want. It's a little bit boring and it's a little bit kind of all or nothing, because if that goalkeeper, that player, you could even think of this as an outfielder, has an absolute nightmare of a match, he just kills every team that he's in. So there's something to be said about multi-selecting on cards, and I've definitely got a lot of that going on in my gallery, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to goalkeepers, I think it's maybe a little bit unnecessary, and it's maybe a little bit dangerous as well, because like a goalkeeper is quite make or break, or quite do or die when it comes to the result. If they concede 3 or 4 goals, there's just no chance they're going to help you to anything. But, the clean sheet isn't everything either. Some guys with a clean sheet are still just bringing in minimum points. So it's one of these positions that, like, it's not a lot of fun, but it's extra important, I think, to really get the specific goalkeepers that you like, you believe in, you don't mind selecting in your team every week, because they will all let you down at some point and you'll be cursing their name and you'll be fuming with them. And that's a little bit easier to move past if you actually think he's a good goalkeeper. Sometimes people will buy a keeper just because they're the cheapest keeper they can get, but there's maybe a reason for that, maybe they don't hold their job for much longer either. That's something you need to worry about. So with Champion Europe being such a busy region, where number 1 goalkeepers can lose their job really easily, and the vogue at the moment is for teams to have like 2 number 1 level goalkeepers, it's a really difficult market to kind of crack into. So my goalkeeper that I had last year, and I've still got, my number 1 guy is Jan Oblak at Atletico Madrid, which is fantastic. And I've maybe backdoored my way into a second goalkeeper with Nikola Vasilj and St. Pauli getting promoted from Bundesliga 2 to Bundesliga 1. So I think I've got 2 just about locked and loaded. So for my third goalkeeper, I was, I'm not looking to spend what we would call champ Euro prices. I'm looking to try and get a guy that has maybe been on the bench, is going to get a job, and maybe a guy at a big team that's going to get a loan out to another team and start playing, or a number 1 is sold and a number 2 gets promoted. A few different things can happen with goalkeepers, but that's the sort of situation I'm looking to capitalise upon for my goalkeeper 3, so I can get 3 lineups into Champion Euro Rare in this case. And when the last ball was kicked of last season, and I'm looking across European football, the number 1 guy, top of the list, that would just fit all of that criteria for me was Maarten Vandevoordt. Now, Maarten Vandevoordt is a card and a player maybe you're familiar with. You probably are if you're a Sorare player, but he's an under-23 Belgium youth international who's been on the scene for Genk for the last couple of seasons. He's played Champions League, he's played some European football already. But 2 years ago, he's agreed a deal. He signed for RB Leipzig, but they said, we're going to leave you in Belgium for 2 seasons, and he's played virtually every game the last 2 seasons. He's a guy who likes to play with the ball at his feet, and I must say, the improvement he's made, especially over the last season, I think he's going to go to Leipzig, and I believe he's got a really good chance of being the number 1 goalkeeper come the first match day of the Bundesliga season. And this is a goalkeeper at the very, very beginning of his career. Now, Hungary number 1, Peter Galassi, and I might add, club captain, RB Leipzig club captain, is still in the building, but he got dropped and marginalised last season for a goalkeeper that was of a similar type to Vandevoordt here. So although I don't think Vandevoordt will play every game for RB Leipzig, I think he's going to play a significant amount of games. And because he's currently a Belgium league goalkeeper, and this transfer was done 2 years ago, a lot of people seem to have kind of forgotten about it, his price Hasn't looked this attractive in so long. So he was the number one goalkeeper for me that I wanted to go and pick up and add in, so that I've got that security of knowing when Champion Euro, the big kind of region where you can win the biggest, best, shiniest cards from the big five leagues in world football, can be won. I've got, a goalkeeper that I believe will play a significant amount of games this season for the price of an up-and-coming young Belgian league goalkeeper. So I was quite happy with that. Goalkeepers being easily the most expensive position that you're going to get in your club and in your teams, especially when we're talking about a really valuable region like Champion Europe. It felt like it took a little bit of pressure off me, and I thought, you know what? I need to make sure I've got my house in order over this summer coming into the new season, because with the classic mode where all the cards are won, it very much looks like it's going to be a very difficult division to consistently get into, the card places consistently throughout the season to the extent that I want to sort of compete in. And I think a big thing that's going to be a leveler and help me kind of, climb a little bit higher on the leaderboards a little bit more consistently is collection bonus. If you want a full explanation on collection bonus, I'll link my video to it up in the top of the screen now for you. But with collection bonus, rare at any level of the game, really, to be honest with you, it is going to be a massive separator, especially if you're a player that potentially sees himself being up in amongst the prizes on a consistent basis. Because when you actually look at the leaderboard and you look at the difference between finishing in the top 20 or the top 10 or the top 50, you're talking about, in a lot of cases, fractions of a point. The collection bonus just gives you that extra little bit of punch on the players you are selecting. But where a lot of people do get confused with it a little bit is I think people think that if you're going to be maximizing collection bonus and you're playing 5 players from the same team, but ideally you're getting a really strong collection bonus from as many different squads as you possibly can, and you're using the pieces of them to kind of interlock and create your better fantasy teams. Now, these 4 New York City rookies don't really add into that, but this is my 3rd season of a collection with New York City, and because I'm so far into that collection already, and I don't want to sell it or move it on, even though like the region, the competition that those guys play in, the Challenger one, isn't one that I'm very much interested in or plan on playing. But I do have that collection all kind of set up and ready to go. And although, as I say, these guys won't be making any appearances for me anytime soon, if I'm going to get a couple of New York City guys from this season in the current squad that I don't have already in my collection, then because these guys are first owner rookies, I get a huge collection bonus on them. So even if I only wanted to add in 1 or 2 more new New York City cards, and these guys cost like £20-30 at this point, if not cheaper, then I'm going to get as strong a collection bonus on them as I did from the players from last season. And, between the 4 of them, they didn't cost me very much at all. So we looked forward to following them on their career, and maybe we see them in some Sorare action as well. That kind of fed through into the Celtic strategy, which is in the same situation, really, as the New York one. But the difference with Celtic for me, of course, is because I've got 3 seasons of Celtic, and Celtic are a dominant team in their league. And when European football's on, the competition that Celtic play in is with all the other leagues in the same kind of standing as the Scottish League, like Austria and Croatia and Argentina and not South America, Mexico, some of these other places. But Celtic are a top side, and with a strong, consistent Celtic stack, I should be in amongst the top parts of the prize pool if I've got a strong collection bonus to separate me from everyone else. So Lager Bielke, I'm not too sure if he'll actually feature for me. Juranovic is obviously in Champion Europe now, but these cards, maybe they do something for me. But like those New York City rookie cards, they're just guys that I can have an exposure into their career a little bit, but they kind of help other cards that I'm more get my eye on. And that region, that competition that Celtic play runs 12 months of the year because it has the K-League and the J-League in it, as well as some of those South and North American leagues that I mentioned a second ago. So I brought in an old favourite of mine, Omi Nami. This was one of the very first cards that was a consistently good performer for me way back when the J-League first came on, when I first started my Sorare club. He's very nominally priced now. He's at one of the better teams in Japan, although they're having an absolutely stinking season. And I'd been winning some guys in this region already, and because in the in-season competition I can play one card that's a classic card, I'm kind of getting a little bit of an Asian team on the go with just some of the rewards that I won. I won a goalkeeper right before the end of the season here, as well as Almendra, who plays in South America. So I've got a little bit of a team from some of the rewards I've won kind of forming here, but I didn't have a defender. And Ominami, I thought we would just go and bring him in. I then won these cards as well from under 23, which is lovely. Again, the Jun Jae Sang adds into, playing contender throughout the summer, potentially even in the in-season competition. But then, with the money strategy in the club in mind. Now, these guys aren't all new cards to the club. Hamari Traore, Javier Galan, and Angelino are all cards I already had in the club, but I wanted to swap their shirts round to make sure I got the collection bonus sorted for the super rares. Now, super rares are of 10, in case you're new around here, and subsequently the prize money you win there, although there's less places that get paid out and etc, but the money paid out there is generally per place pot, like very, very high. So there's less cards in here. It's a bit of a different game dynamic, and I do think that the collection bonus at that side of the game is going to be very underutilized. So although I'm not getting too much of a difference with these guys are all going to get an extra 2% bonus on them, I actually like the aesthetic of all the cards matching a little bit better as well, number one. But number two, I just really want to make sure that with the divisions and the teams that I'm building, that I'm thinking about, these are going to try and win me either cards of high value, or the cards of high value they're going to help me win will go into a team that could go and play a cash competition. I want every point that they score to get me as high up the leaderboard as absolutely possible. Nordi Mukiele was a new acquisition, but he's on the bench at PSG now, so he's somebody that I've brought in hoping, crossing my fingers, that he makes a really good transfer in the summer. Like Angelino, who is signed on now for Roma for next season, which is a massive W for me, because on loan there under Daniele De Rossi, he looked really, really good. Daichi Kamada has left Lazio and went to Crystal Palace as well, which is a fantastic transfer for me, because Crystal Palace have been a team that I love. I love watching Ole Glasner, and that's what he is now. And him, Kamada, me, it just feels like a good kind of throwback, as it were. So no collection bonus necessarily for the Kamada, but it's that season where they won the Europa League, so I quite like that. And speaking of RB Leipzig with the Vandevoordt, I then won out of under 23 a Luis Openda, which this guy was lighting up the Bundesliga this season. He's had some links to some transfers this summer, but with the transfer fee associated with him, I don't think he is actually going to leave. So that's a champ rare forward that I've managed to win with Japanese and Korean cards mainly, I think, in that one. Maybe even some of those New York City MLS cards in the under-23 competition. So that's a nice kind of strengthening a card I didn't actually need to buy or bring in. But I'm watching out for Openda and seeing if he does make a transfer throughout the summer. I brought in a guy that plays in China, and he's a bit of a cheat code as well. Ben Summers is a rookie card at Celtic. Again, you can probably imagine why I brought him in. But then, guys, you might think, oh, you've bought Oyarzabal and Olmo in because of the Euros or whatever. But genuinely, maybe not Oyarzabal as much, but Dani Olmo is a card that I've been tracking for ages on Sorare. And this is a guy that just has always felt, it feels like, a little bit too expensive for, the injury record he's got. And he scores well, don't get me wrong, he's always scored well, but he's never scored that great. This is genuinely the cheapest he's ever been. And when I seen that, I thought, I have to go and get a Dani Olmo in, because he did have a good year. He could have a good Euros with Spain as well, but he is a guy that could transfer somewhere amazing and be wildly better very quickly. Because one thing I know from watching Dani Olmo is he is a proper elite world-class footballer. The scores out of 100 here don't always, they definitely show a good account of him. He's, just about 100 capable here. Leipzig do concede a lot of goals, and with him being a midfielder card, that can maybe hold him back a little bit. He's not always great for getting 90 minutes either, mind you. But this is a guy that I think, with a change of situation, with a change of transfer, could be a really formidable, a phenomenal player on Sorare. He's already a good player, but he's at peak potential. He's fit and firing and cooking with gas already. So that's a guy I'd been eyeing up and hoping to bring into my gallery for ages. And finding him basically at the floor, the cheapest he's ever been, it was really hard to ignore, even before the Euros. He didn't start for Spain, but I got him in on the last group stage game, which was good fun, as well as Oyarzabal here. But Oyarzabal has been decent, he's been tidy, but I've got a little Sociedad collection on the go, and having another La Liga forward that, Oyarzabal is definitely not one of the most premium strikers you're going to find, but again, he's never really been this cheap before. And for a guy that is captain, a penalty taker, a team that will be playing in Europe next year, it just felt like a really good opportunity in filling up. Because the thing with goal scorers and strikers is that they're very flaky. They go hot and cold. And if you get three teams, we're talking about the goalkeepers earlier, you probably need a little bit more than three, especially if one of them is Vandevoordt, in case he doesn't play every game. But with forwards, they might play every game, but they don't score every game. And that's part of your job with selecting forwards, or even these attacking midfielder types, is having enough of them to cycle through and call upon, that you always have the fixture stacked in your favour. You can always have enough guys in a good position every game week. So I thought for those two guys, are quality footballers in a really good spot in each of their careers respectively, and for getting them for Olmo was like 70 quid Oyarzabal was like 30. Spain internationals as well. It just felt like an absolute no-brainer. It just really made a big difference to enhancing my squad. And again, I've continued on with just making sure, because I'm almost there, right? But I've got Season 1 Celtic up at maximum collection bonus. Season 2 is just about going to get there now that I've got that Ben Summers and I've got that Cameron Carter-Vickers in from friend of the channel, Hendo. And then the current, the last season, still got a little bit of work to do on that one, let's say. But the Carter Vickers is a huge addition because I'll actually be using that card. Ajeti has went to Switzerland, right? And this is the beauty of collection bonus for me, because Ajeti was not really that good a Celtic player. I didn't overly want him. But in Switzerland, he plays in the same competition as Celtic again. He's just went back to Basel. And as you can see with his last 3 games, he's managed to get himself 2 decisives from the bench, 1 start essentially. And this is a guy that isn't going to have a massive career in the game, but I bet he could be probably quite good in Switzerland. If he's not quite good enough for the Premier League, he's not quite good enough for Celtic. He's went to Turkey and it didn't really 100% work out there, and he cost like next to nothing. But he's a guy that, might play up front for me, And again, coming back to under 23s, I had another bit of success and I won an under 23 goalkeeper. He's got a shamrock on his jersey, he wears green and white, and he's installed as being the #1 goalkeeper for a team that could get promoted out of Bundesliga 2 next year. And Bundesliga 2, again, is a division that plays in the same competition as Celtic. And this, for me, is kind of my Celtic goalkeeper for next year. Big Jonas big German youth international, got a big future ahead of him. So that was a lovely card to win, because as you can see with the guy next to him, Joe Hart, has retired. He has left the building. And that's one of the big things I've got to try and, sort out ahead of next season, is having 3 goalkeepers that can play alongside my big Celtic cards 99% of the time. If they can be a Celtic goalkeeper, jackpot. Worst case scenario, they play in Europe or in Scotland and have mostly a good fixture tie-up with them. But Celtic haven't signed a goalkeeper yet, and I can't run the risk of them not having a card or them being too expensive or some sort of shenanigans on the go. So winning a guy like Urbig is absolutely phenomenal for me. And similar to Vandevoordt, both of these guys I can play in the Wonder Kid division under 23, so I'm getting a nice kind of Venn diagram on the go of cards that have got different levels of utility and different places it can be played to give me and my cards the most amount of flexible freedom as possible to play really the best competition for whatever the fixtures are in any given game week here. So not really a transfer in the Urbig one. That was a win from, finishing high on the leaderboard, but still a great acquisition to get in. And again, similar to the Vandevoordt, I can breathe a sigh of relief when a guy like that comes into the club. We've got another shirt swap here for Oyarzabal, Ideguchi and Kobayashi. You can probably work out by now why they've come into the club. But Marcel Hausenberg here fits into my RB Leipzig collection, which is really highly rated at the moment. But he's been playing at Hanover in Bundesliga 2, and with the Jonas Urbig one coming in, it just feels like having a big, strong, powerful defender. His scores are phenomenal in the game, that plays in the same division as the goalkeeper I've just won. Feels like it will pay off for me at some stage. He fits into a collection I've got already. He marries into a competition that I want to be winning Celtic cards from, etc., next year. So that was a really easy one to go and swoop. And then kind of similar to where we started this video off with the Vandevoordt, Jasper Cillessen has signed a transfer from NEC, former Barca, former Valencia, former Holland #1, NEC, middle of the table, Dutch team. He's left them and he's went to Las Palmas. It looks like they'll be selling their goalkeeper, Alex Valles, probably to Betis, but it could be someone else. But Jasper Cillessen is priced at the moment. Has been a Dutch goalkeeper in the Eredivisie, and he's now moved into La Liga, and I managed to pick him up for like 30, 40 quid. And I know Las Palmas aren't great. They're not got a great defensive record or anything like that. But like I said at the beginning, goalkeepers are going to make and break you anyway. And the Las Palmas goalkeeper did so well this year, he's moving up the food chain, as it were, in La Liga. So if you are a good goalkeeper, a good shot stopper, a guy with good experience, then there's every reason to believe that at Las Palmas, who are an island team who normally have a strong home record, is going to be a goalkeeper that I can use. On top of the Vandevoordt, the Oblak and the Vasil, just me now got 4 guys that will play in Champion Europe for next year at rare levels. Even if Vandevoordt isn't going to play every week, I've got a bit more cover, that sort of thing. So it does feel like a month into the transfer window. Cillessen, Haustenberg, Urbig, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Olmo, Oyarzabal, Openda. I don't think I'll count the super rares for this example. Or Naranovic. Vandevoordt. That's a good couple of cards in there that are going to make a massive difference to my Sorare club. That in terms of the transfer market and how everything's going to be going on crazy this summer, I'm not actually that worried about it. I don't really need to, Olmo might make a transfer, but I think it would only make him in a better situation. Vandevoort's transfer is already secured. And Killison, I managed to react to some news and get a guy in, you know, at the right time, at the right price for my club. Now, the problem I've not had to juggle yet this transfer window is players leaving to somewhere really bad that I don't want them to go and maybe being forced to sell them. That's not came to my door yet. I'm sure it will before this summer is out. But 1 month in, you know, like, I feel like I was doing a lot of good preparation for the new format and the new division structure that we've got on Sorare for the coming season. But thankfully, down to some of the wins and some of the trades I've managed to do over the last month, like really like bring it on. I am basically ready for the new season. Over the next couple of months, I'm going to be adding to my squad and just kind of filling out some of these collections that I've got on the go across Champion Europe and with Celtic especially. And outside of that, it's just going to be about watching out for those transfers this summer because there's going to be some massive moves. Like I said at the tip off of the video, Europe is going to be remodeled this summer transfer window. And if you can really keep your finger on the pulse and you can watch out for a player changing the situation and you know it's going to work out for the better, you can get some really powerful cards into your Sorare club this summer that will make a massive difference next season. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. On screen and now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. And get into the comment section and let me know what your big summer transfer has been or, you know, what you've got your fingers crossed for. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.